Hey, everybody. Welcome to After Hours. And today, joining me to take over for Jamie Hoyle is Michael Peterson. You know him from Bolts on the Blue at Zone Tracks. Say hello to the people, Mike.
What's going on, everyone? Obviously, like you guys see a lot more of just like my name and stuff, obviously from the website. But like, this is what I look like. I'm a little grizzled, but
A little dark.
a little grizzled. A little dark.
The lighting, yeah.
There's a long story, and we'll probably get into this. But I'm like locked into a corner, and you can thank my wife for forcing me in this situation because apparently football and what I do for a living doesn't matter. So here we are.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about this game because there wasn't a lot of drama here today. It was pretty easy. Chargers win it 37-21. A little it was kind of after the onside kick. You didn't really worry, but it got kind of a little closer than it should have. But pretty easy win for the Chargers.
Finally, no, that's exactly the right word. I was, paying attention on my phone after I got kicked off in here, and I was like, wait a minute, like they scored, and like, wait a minute, they got an onside kick, and like in a normal Chargers game, that stuff starts to happen, but there's like 15 minutes left in the game, and you're like, oh, it's happening. But luckily, the Chargers were able to, build a big enough lead, and none of that really mattered at the end. It just makes the win look a little lesser than what it normally was. But one of the biggest things I was thinking about was, can you imagine what it would be like being a good team in a bad division where you have like multiple games like this in a season where you come in and you're like, oh no, they're going to win that game no matter what. There's not a second thought, right? Like that's what this game was this Sunday. Like we just, of course they tied it 7-7 early, but then it was all Chargers and you're like, yeah, this is a great Sunday. It's just relaxed, no drama. Could you imagine that being like that happening quite a bit during your season? It'd be amazing.
So like a Patriots, like how they were just able to run through.
No, exactly what I'm saying. I mean, like when the 2018 season, when this team went 12-4 to the playoffs and stuff like that, and we're winning a lot of games, I was like, can you imagine being a Patriots fan? And this is just reality for you. This is just every single year. It's just steamroll the AFC East and no worries, right?
Yeah. So this was I was so glad that this was a carefree Sunday because they haven't had this all season, and to beat a bad team, just beat them down and not have to worry about it. I mean, even though it was tied 7-7, I had no worries throughout the entire game. I did not think they were going to blow it. The Giants just weren't talented enough to beat this team, and they finally were able to kind of step on the gas and get the win today. There's a bunch of highlights for me, but we got to talk about probably the greatest throw we've seen maybe ever, definitely this season. But that throw that was probably 175 yards in the air, and you can't convince me otherwise. I know I watched it, and the math doesn't add up, but that was wild. And to be tackled from behind while you're making that throw, it was unreal.
I couldn't believe what I was seeing, honestly, in the moment. So like he escapes a little bit, some pressure to his right, and he has just enough time to set his feet and kind of step into it and let this thing go. And a lot of the highlights, people were like, oh, he just threw it 65 yards on a rope. And I'm like, on a rope? It touched the Oculus board, like it hit the ozone layer, came back down before Jalen Guyton caught it. I mean, this thing was just, it couldn't have been thrown better. And honestly, when you go back and look at the play, that's probably not where the ball was supposed to go, right? Like it was just, I've never seen Herbert, who's usually like not conservative, but plays like under care and like make sure he's not throwing a bad ball. This was the biggest like F-it moment for Herbert. He just like, like we're about to go into halftime. Like, let's just heave it. And he just did it. And we got what we got. Like, one of the best throws I've seen all season, one of the best throws he's ever put up in his young career. And I mean, that would seem to be the sentiment across social media.
Oh, everybody thought so. PFF's tweeting throw of the year. Everybody's talking about that throw. It was wild. I couldn't believe what I saw. And there is a point now in the season where if Justin Herbert's rolling out and he has no pressure, like there's a 5-yard cushion and he's just on the sideline by himself, some wild shit is about to go down. Like every single time. It is so awesome that and just like today, when he made that throw across his body, going to the sideline to the middle of the field, like most quarterbacks are like, oh no. But for Justin Herbert, he's electric and something good's going to happen more times than not.
No, you're absolutely correct. I mean, I don't have like the exact words to describe that sensation, that feeling you get when you're watching him. And yes, whether it's roll out left or right, they usually got a tight end or someone stopping the one guy who's supposed to be like, cover the end man on the line of scrimmage. And he's just sitting there and you're like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. And you're like, holy crap, something cool is about to go down. You don't know if he's throwing it left, right, middle, deep, whatever, but you're just like, whatever happens in the next 5 seconds is going to blow my mind.
Yeah.
And that's just what happened today. Like it's an incredible feeling. I mean, it must be like what Chiefs fans have really kind of felt with Mahomes like a ton of times when he's escaping the pocket, right? You're like, oh, Mahomes is about to do something cool. And the Chargers have their version of that. It's just you see Herbie stop, do the little hitch, and then you're like, it's about to happen. And then there it goes.
And then something happens. And it was amazing. That throw, obviously being a big one, the one where he threw across his body to the middle of the field was another one. But I mean, he obviously was electric. The other highlight for me was Joey Bosa and that sack dance with the teabag. That was awesome. That big play, getting the strip sack on 4th down, but to do the teabag celebration with the gun in hand, that old Halo reference, I loved it.
I didn't understand it at first because someone just called it like a squat push-up celebration. And I went, wait a minute, I must have missed it. So I go find a video and he does it. And I'm like, wait a minute, that looks really familiar. I feel like I've done that a few times, virtually. And I'm like, no, he didn't. So like, that's incredible. It made me feel super nostalgic for the Halo series, which was obviously the game, back in the day growing up. But that was fantastic.
You gonna play the new one?
I want to so bad, but I'm a PlayStation guy. I'm still sitting with a PS4.
Same here.
My brother, who used to work at GameStop, is the game guy in our family. He has like every console imaginable, and everything that I could want. So like literally I could just go over to his house and be like, yeah, I want to play Halo. And I could just play it. So I'll leave it to him to hold it. Yeah.
I worked at GameStop for a little bit there. It was a fun little job. Yeah, for sure.
It was like my brother. He started like when he was 16, and like growing up, we were big nerds and we played all kinds of games. And so this was like his dream job. He was like the big leagues, man. He's at GameStop now. He's since been to a couple different places. He's been to like Best Buy and a bunch of other places, but like that was like the beginning of his life. It seemed like was GameStop, and it was he like all his best friends now who don't work at GameStop anymore, but they all met at GameStop. So it's apparently a magical place.
Oh yeah. It was so cool. In fact, when I was 18, I got a job at a toy store, and it was like heaven, dude. Like just being a teenager working in a toy store was the best. And then of course I moved on to GameStop right after it. And I was like, dude, life's good. And then like I had to make money, so I had to like get a real job, but that was a lot of fun. Somebody had commented about how this was a game that was like back in the day with LT and Gates and Mary Mack, but of course they meant Merriman, Williams and Rivers in their prime.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, that's a lot like what it felt like. I mean, it felt like that Charger team was more of a juggernaut and you expected that to happen like every week. This is a team that I think is really good, but don't expect to kind of stomp out every single team. They usually make it close, but this was a good feeling. I mean, a boring Sunday is a good Sunday when Chargers win for sure.
No, you're exactly correct. Again, probably wouldn't say, it felt just like those guys were still on the team. But this was a game where every, notable player, I think, showed up at one point or another offensively and defensively. But also this game was missing Keenan Allen and Derwin James, right? Which would be two names that are comparable to, the names from that comment, right? Like if those guys were playing and they still put up, this many points or maybe even more points, who knows? Then it definitely would have been one of those things. And I think this was a good win, although, you want to say, yeah, of course they beat the Giants. Well, we obviously know it's never been that easy, right? There's always a little bit of adversity. The Chargers, could have maybe had this game be closer than it was in the end. And we wouldn't have been surprised, right? It's just something that the Chargers have done. But it's good that they had the task in front of them, which was a simple task. I mean, beat the Giants. And they just did that. No drama, like you said, is good drama. It's a good day. When none of that happens on a Sunday. So overall, I think they played fantastically. And I'm just glad, I don't even think I tweeted anything negative today. I think that's a big win.
Oh
right?
Yeah.
Like I had nothing to say. I think even when something bad happened, I was just like, stuff happens, and that's a weird
like
thing.
when Parham missed, it kind of clanked off his hands on the onside kick. It was like, all right, well, it's okay. That's all right.
Like they were stuffed on the 4th and goal. And I was like, oh, well, can't do it every time.
And then, of course, the false start on Filer, so he saved him 3 points, basically.
Yeah.
But, and so, Chris, talk about jobs. Like Target, that's where I'm working now. That's the real job, for sure. And so Omar's talking about the bad stuff that happened, and it's Kenneth Murray. He had 2 neutral zone infractions, still Chargers played a complete game and happy about it. That's exactly right. and he also gave up the touchdown to the fullback, which was bad.
Yeah, I mean, when you say so, he says K9 had such a mad day, but it's like, but that's a day. That's just a day for Kenneth Murray, unfortunately, right now. Like
Yeah,
he
yeah,
hasn't his play hasn't been good enough consistently to where the bar has been raised beyond just like being fine and not screwing up, every
right.
game that comes out, right? Like he hasn't done anything that when he's bad, it's not like, oh, that's really unlike Kenneth Murray. No, that's kind of like it's very unfortunate being the former first round pick that he is, but that's where he stands right now. Him not screwing up is just like good. It's actually beyond good. Like we're just kind of like, yeah, good. I mean, I don't know
Yeah,
how else
yeah,
to explain it. I
yeah,
guess
yeah,
I'm lost for
yeah,
words. It's just like it's just weird, man. He hasn't raised the bar at all, and unfortunately, he's just a meh player right now. And today he had a meh game, which
yeah.
shouldn't be a big surprise.
No, no. I mean, kind of a rotational piece at this point, and at some point, he's going to be like a special teams contributor at this rate, which is kind of sad, especially with big play from Nick Neiman at the end of the game to get that interception,
Oh,
which is nice, which is a nice
oh
little
yeah,
stamp on that game.
oh
But
yeah.
but you were talking about Keenan Allen. We thought it was going to be a big, heavy dose of Mike Williams today, but it was actually the fringe wide receiver 3 guys that kind of carried the load. Jalen Guyton, Joshua Palmer both had touchdowns. Guyton had 87, Palmer with 66, I believe. They were good. They were good today, and both stepped up. You thought, hey, they get some extended minutes. Keenan Allen's out. Who's going to kind of pull in that wide receiver 3 spot? Palmer looked great today. Jalen Guyton, of course, caught that beautiful pass from Herbert.
Yeah, I think, besides the big deep ball from Herbert to Guyton, excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of what we expected. I mean, Guyton got open on, a kind of intermediate out route up the left sideline. I mean, he did a couple different things to kind of round out his performance instead of him just being like, oh, he's probably just going to catch one deep ball. Maybe that's all he provides to the game, right? And then we saw Joshua Palmer. I think he ended up with a team high, 7 targets, 5 catches, 66 yards. He did have the touchdown, which was a heck of a ball by Herbert to be able to lead him just in time for him to turn up the sideline and score that touchdown, which was phenomenal, right? Like, and funny enough, earlier today, my wife gave me her fantasy football lineup, and she goes, "Oh, I'm Michael Pittman's out. I need someone to replace him." And
Yeah.
I said, you should probably try Joshua Palmer. Like, I mean, it just seems to be one of those games because it was like
Yeah.
Slayton, Kenny Galladay, so 2 Giants receivers, or Palmer.
Uh-huh.
And I go, well, you probably want to go with Palmer because a real quarterback's throwing him the
Yeah.
football,
Right. Uh-huh.
and he ends up scoring. And so it was just like a lot of good feelings around Palmer's performance today, right, on multiple levels. And I mean, Palmer is a complete wide receiver, man. I don't know what to tell you. Like, he showed off in the run game. He showed off catching different passes, scoring the touchdown, obviously. He just showed he could do it all. And then obviously Mike Williams still had a pretty good game as well.
Yeah, and you're right. It was Palmer with 7, and I think Mike Williams had 6. So he led the team in. Great block on that outside run to Austin Eckler. Speaking of the running game, Arturo asks, why do you think Joshua Kelly was getting more reps than Jackson? So, Michael, do you think it was more of a game dictating type of deal where they know they've got Kansas City next week? That's in the back of your mind. The game's getting away from you. You got a big lead. Austin Eckler goes down. Justin Jackson's been effective enough, and then Joshua Kelly comes in. Do you think it's more of it's garbage time minutes, or do you think there's something to Kelly getting a little bit more minutes than Jackson towards the end?
Honestly, I think it has to be with, like, in terms of or how the team was up by so much. I think it comes with the Chiefs coming on Thursday. Eckler was out, obviously. He was getting taped up, which was, a sign that maybe if this game wasn't so much of a blowout, Eckler might have returned, which is a crazy thing to think about because everyone said, he couldn't even put pressure on his leg at all. And so with Eckler, out as a precaution, with them in the leads so much that maybe Jackson was going to be seen as, oh, he might be our starter next Thursday if Eckler's injury is worse than we thought. So maybe, again, with the blowout, it's just, okay, we can, because Kelly was the only other running back besides those 2 active today, right, with Roundtree inactive. So I think it's mostly garbage time. I think it's protecting the guy who may end up being the starter this coming Thursday if your actual starter in Eckler is not available to go that day.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of I kind of felt like some strategic moves today where you're kind of taking players out early on because that matchup on Thursdays in the back of your mind because that's so important. Keeping Derwin out, I mean, who knows how serious that injury was, but keeping Eckler on the sideline was a smart move. They shouldn't have brought him back at all, but they had every intention to bring him back on. You don't tape up his entire foot with, a couple
Did you
rolls of
see
tape.
his foot too? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
my wife again sitting next to me, and I'm like, what are they
yeah,
doing? It's a club.
yeah,
Like when you see clubs when people have broken arms and stuff like
yeah,
that, his foot looked massive.
yeah,
Like it looked like it was actually swollen up that big. I couldn't believe
yeah,
it. I'm like, at what point though? I know you're trying to be safe, but at what point
yeah,
is that like detrimental to your performance?
yeah, because he looks like a mummy from the waist down. He's got like a giant taped up foot.
I'm like comparatively, he's sitting there and I'm like, it's as big as his head, right?
Yeah,
Like this thing on his
yeah,
ankle. I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
that has to weigh him down at that point. It was just so weird when I was looking at it.
yeah. Richard here wants to talk about Joe Lombardi and his play calling today. How'd you feel about his play calling?
I'll tell you what, I didn't have really any qualms with his play calling today. I thought running the ball early and then they had success early on. And so they kept doing it and they kept having success, which I think is, an easy way to go with the run game, right? If you do it, if it works, yes, then you're allowed to keep trying it, on this team that wants to throw and is much better at throwing than running. I thought that was a good way to kind of flex those other muscles that this team doesn't do all that often. There were one or two drives. I think it was the first drive where they stalled and kicked a field goal, the first field goal of the day, where they threw it a bunch, and that's how they got into the red zone. I think they might have been inside the 15, and they have a first down run that doesn't go for, I think, a yard or two, and then they run it again for, really nothing. And so all of a sudden it's 3rd and long, and you're like, 9 yards out from the end zone. And I'm like, well, at that point, why are you running it back-to-back times? I know you had success before, but the field's shorter. They're kind of expecting that a little bit. I just thought it was weird to maybe kill momentum with back-to-back runs when the first one is not successful whatsoever. If it was a 5-yard carry and then you wanted to run it again, cool, that's fine. But if it's 2nd and 9 and you're like, yeah, let's just run it again, I think it's a weird buzzkill thing. I know it didn't affect the game whatsoever, but that's one of my biggest pet peeves is following up a bad run with another run, because the worst like case scenario is far worse than, I guess, the flip side of it.
Yeah. We had there was a lot of issues with the second down runs that became successful later on, but there's no real issues that I have. I thought, even though he didn't get it, that little rollout on the goal line to Justin Herbert, where he took it and ran, just to keep the defense honest. He got tackled short and they ended up scoring with Austin Eckler on the goal line. But that was real nice there. There was a cute little wrinkle he threw in the second quarter, I believe, where they had the kind of streaking Eckler across one side, and he got the 12 yards off the edge. And then they snuck on the very next play, they snuck Mike Williams on the opposite side in the flat, and they passed it to him. It was like a 6-7 yard gain. So they ran the same play back to back, run pass, and it was a nice little wrinkle that I enjoyed from Lombardi today. They were both effective, and it was hard to complain in the first half. 289 yards. They had 18 first downs. They were firing on all cylinders. They stalled out like a few times, but it didn't seem like the Giants had much to do to stop them at all today. So it was solid. They did enough to beat the Giants for sure. And it didn't seem like Lombardi was holding them back at all. It wasn't one of those games today.
No, I don't think so at all. I think everything was running super smooth and they were firing on all cylinders. I think he was kind of, I guess, how the kids would say it, in their bag. He was in his bag today. He just didn't have a lot of calls. Any game where they come and go where there's not like, well, let's put it on the Giants here real quick. They ran 2 flea flickers in the span of 4 plays. And neither of them worked. And that's a sequence that we as Chargers fans have seen previous time, like multiple times before, right? Like just these cute plays followed by another cute play or one a couple plays later. And they're just horrendous, right? I never felt, I've for a long time, I haven't felt like this team is a cute play team where they always have like the timing down and the nuance down to fake it, to fake the right things and to get the, defense to do what they want to make those trick plays successful. I've just never been a big fan of it. But overall, I thought it was good. I thought they were really marrying the run and the pass together, kind of like you mentioned that they'd run the same concept twice, but like one's the run and then one's play action off of that. And one play I really like that they've had success with in the past, and I like that they're doing it now, is that play where Josh Palmer was he came across the formation to be like the lead blocker for Austin Eckler on that run. Well, that motion by the receiver turning into a blocker is what turns into the flat route when they run play action off that type of stuff. So I'm a big fan of that. I think we've got really good receivers who, at least when Keenan's there, Palmer showed he could do it today, that they can be a factor in the run game. And then when that's not a run play, it is designed to be a pass, they're able to take that flat route, turn up. I think Mike Williams did that as well and got some extra yards.
Yeah, yeah, and that on that drive to have Joshua Palmer come back and make that huge block to Spring Eckler and then reward him at the end with the touchdown. A beautiful stick route, by the way, by Palmer on that touchdown. Is great. I mean, nice little just reward the rookie. He made a great play, got his nose in, made a good block, and then you get him the touchdown at the end of it. I also, it seemed like today also, we haven't got to the defense yet, but I just want to mention Justin Herbert today is the first ever player to have 30 touchdown passes in his first 2 seasons.
Yep.
Amazing milestone again today. The records just keep pouring on.
Yeah, and I mean, so that was one of the records that he had today. The other record being that when he threw his 725th completion, which is the most by a player in their first 2 seasons in NFL history, and he still has 4 games left? 4 games left after today, I believe. Yep. They're 8-5. Yep.
Yeah, so, they got 3 in the AFC West and then the Texans.
And the Texans, yeah. So I mean, so sets a record with 3 games left. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's been an incredible run every week right now. It just seems like, he's the first player to do this through 2 seasons. He's the first player to do that. And I mean, that's a good thing when he's up there with, Holmes, Marino, Kurt Warner. I mean, there are records and groups of players that he's now up there with where the correlation is he's probably going to be a really good player by the time it's all said and done, right? You don't have one-hit wonders really amongst those players, right? You don't have Cam Newton. I know he had a really good rookie season and he kind of petered off eventually and didn't have the full length of careers he probably wanted, but I feel pretty good about what Herbert's doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, how could you not? I mean, I don't want to start comparing him to Rivers, but we haven't seen a guy with this type of arm talent in a long time, and it's a lot of fun to watch. Abraham here wants to talk about the number. He doesn't like canine with the number 9. Should the Bolts implement a rule that bans bad players from non-traditional numbers? That's the question.
Okay, I thought he was
care about the single digit. No. If you're bad, you don't get the single digit. Because the single digit's too clean for a good player,
I'm not gonna lie. Because at first, before you read the rest of the comment, I was like, oh no, not this boomer stuff. I fought with enough people on Twitter about this stuff. But you kind of have a point, and I mean, we're not team owners, right? We're not coaches and stuff. Yeah. But there's as him as the player though, he wears that single digit. He knows what it means. He knows he's a bad dude. He's wearing a single digit as a linebacker. The number 9 he wore at Oklahoma. There's all that stuff wrapped into it, all that nostalgia. K9, right? Sick nickname, right? There's all that stuff that goes into it. And then he just doesn't do anything. He's just not impactful. And I was a big fan. I cannot stress enough how much of a fan I was of Kenneth Murray at Oklahoma. I thought he was so much fun to watch. He had the cowboy collar, the neck roll, whatever you want to call it. And maybe that's honestly, what if that's causing him to be not so great in the NFL? What if he's just missing that last bit, man? Ooh. He's just not himself. I just don't understand. Yeah. Leighton Vander Esch wore the cowboy collar coming out of Boise State with the Cowboys. And I'm not going to say he's been the best, recently. Yeah, he was pretty good when he started out. But yeah, I mean, that's tough. I think, he himself maybe once or twice has thought to himself that, do I deserve this number 9? Yeah. And, I don't know, Kenneth. I don't know.
It's too clean to have a single digit and not be good.
Gosh, man. I mean, but 40, so I'll tell you what, though, 44 is a sweet number. I love double numeral numbers like that. Derwin James is 33. Kaiser White's 44. I think 55 is a heck of a number for a linebacker as well. Obviously, I know it's probably an offensive line number somewhere, but Derek Brooks wearing the 55, I think that's such a cool number. And then 22, Justin Jackson's whatever. But yeah, Junior Seau, correct.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, I don't know, man. That single numeral, I'm so with you, but I hate the 40s, linebackers in 40s.
Really?
I hate that number. Yeah. I just don't think it looks good, but I do love the 11, 22, 33, 44, 55. Yeah. I get that for sure.
Drew Tranquil's 49 is rare. Yeah. 49 is a rare number for a linebacker. You don't see a lot of players wear 49. That's such a weird number. And to be honest, I'm not going to say I'm the biggest fan of it, but it's unique. And so I'm kind of just rolling in. I'm kind of leaning into that, right? He's a linebacker with a unique number and he's a pretty good player. So I think it works.
Yeah, they're good. And that's all that matters. But I do not like linebackers of 40s. I think it should be banned. But Abraham, that's a great point, though. I love it.
Mm.
Jonathan has a question here. I love Staley's ability to fix issues. He fixed the field goals, obviously, with Dustin Hopkins. Special
Finally,
team coverage and returns. Andre Roberts, huge. Pre-snap penalties and the right side of the O-line protection issues. But punt blocks, how do we solve it?
So are our punts getting blocked, or us like getting more blocked punts?
He's saying no block punts, fix the protection. I mean, obviously, part of that is Ty Long taking a day and a half to put the ball down and kick it.
Okay, yeah, because now we're talking
his
about
motion is so slow.
Okay, so for those who don't know, so I actually played punter in college. I played tight end and punter, which was really cool. I was an all-state punter in high school, so like I'm still really into punting and like
here
that
we
whole
go.
process. And you know, again, I'm not an NFL punter. I didn't make it that far in my career, so I don't know what Darius Swin is telling Ty Long what to do. But when I was in college and punting, they actually came to me and said, like, what is your process? They said, are you a one-stepper or are you a two-stepper? Which just means obviously how many steps you take to actually kick your ball. And to be honest, I think I was a one-stepper. I wanted to get out as quick as possible. But at the end of the day, when you're back there and you get the snap, you're looking at the center, right? While you're in the motion of about to catch the ball, you're also sensing in your peripherals the pressure. Right? Like that's what you have to do, right? Just as a quarterback, you're looking downfield and feeling the pressure. So as you're receiving that ball coming at you from 15 yards away, you are kind of reading the defense or at least the rush and seeing what's going on. And so as the punter and as a professional punter, you would think that when he is receiving that snap, he's aware of what's coming at him. And so when there's obvious pressure, especially up the middle pressure, that how are you not grabbing that ball and knowing I got to get this thing out now and doing that? So when I think the last punt block Ty Long had, I watched the replay and I'm like, there's no rush. There's no hurry. There's no pace. There's someone barreling down on him. I mean, on him immediately. Yeah. He's still catch 1, 2, kick. And that's not the pace. You can go catch, step, kick that quickly. Or there's also, potentially you have to catch that thing and maybe take a step or two in one direction to go away from the pressure to make that happen. It just seems like he's so locked into his ritual, whatever you want to call it. Process. Yeah, excuse me. And I just don't understand because, again, not an NFL punter. I don't know what he's told, but for the life of me, I can't imagine that coach or him being taught that he can't deviate from that process, right? Like, I mean, as a quarterback, you have to, run around, scramble, you have to make play happen. And sometimes as a punter, it's that same case. So I just don't get it. And so that's my biggest qualm. And I usually tweet it out when it happens during the game. And it just seems like he takes forever to get that punt off. And I just don't see why he can't speed it up at
all. I love that insight, Mike. I knew you were tight end. I didn't know you also punted. That's awesome. And I don't know why that's not in your
Have you seen the punter from the Steelers?
San Diego. Oh, I thought you were going to say San Diego State.
No, he's awesome. He's fantastic.
Yeah.
We played the Steelers, right? His last name's like Hayden or something. He is a big dude. And so as I was like a 230-pound punter, which is a big for a punter, I'm 6'2", 6'3". And so I was always a big punter. And so I love seeing that dude like in the NFL winning a starting punting job. It's just so awesome. But yeah, man, no, I love punting. And I mean, for a little more insight, like I was glorified like blocking tight end fullback in high school. My coach never used a tight end as a passer. So like I literally picked up punting my freshman year of high school and was like, well, if I can't play tight end and, be all state, I was like, I'm going to learn to kick the heck out of this ball. And I just did that. Like, that's all I did. I mean, I watched videos and stuff and I just taught myself how to kick a ball. Turns out I was pretty good at it.
Oh man, that's awesome. I'm sure there's a lot more questions about it, and we'll probably get back to it. But we're going to get to some more questions here. Nathan here, Harrison. You seem new, Nathan. What's up, man? Michael Davis played great today outside of just the if you block out that TD to Barkley, which was true. I mean, it was a big gamble on the outside at the end of the game on Saquon Barkley. He tried to jump the inside, but yeah, he had an incredible game today. And also, shout out to Chris Harris Jr., who also had a very good game today.
Yeah, they all did. Most definitely. Mike Davis, this was a big game for him because, I mean, by any measure, advanced stats, Mike Davis is not having one of his best seasons. In fact, he's kind of having one of the worst seasons in terms of like tackling and his coverage his grades in those categories. But we know how good of a player he is. It kind of sucks that he signed, an extension, right, a new contract, and he's not performing the way we would have expected him to. But this was a big game that I think where he looked much more like himself, right? I think he had, 3 or 4 pass breakups. He almost had an interception on that jump ball next to Kenny Golladay that they were fighting over. But right, like the little blemish being the touchdown that he led up to Saquon Barkley. And in that moment, he probably really wanted like a pick six, really wanted to just ice
for
the
sure.
game, and so that's the only thing probably going through his head, why he would bite on that so hard. To his, to his justification, like, I don't think with any running back, I know it's Saquon Barkley, which is why maybe you have to think about that context. But if a running back's out wide like that, unless you're Austin Eckler, who's done it a bunch, like he's probably not running a go route or like not going deep. But at the same time, it is Saquon Barkley, like literally one of the most athletic running backs in the NFL. So maybe that happens. But to Davis, the chances were that he was running a short route, and I think that's why he was just locked and loaded to defend that.
Yeah, and I think because the game was a little bit out of hand at that point, and they had such a big lead, that he kind of gave himself that grace to kind of see if he could jump it and ice the game. So obviously not great. He gave up the touchdown, and it's not going to look good on his stat sheet or in the PFF grades, but he played a hell of a game today. And it's, it's just like Michael was talking about earlier. It's just kind of like, that's fine, whatever. It's just they blew this team out, and they were the better team today. And then little things like that, and the missed catch by Parham on the onside kick, those little things, that doesn't really matter. Filer getting the false start, K9, none of that really mattered today. They put it all together, and they weren't losing today.
No, not at all. And again, that kind of goes back to, the beginning of this whole thing, the topic we were on, which was, a lackadaisical day, right? Like how amazing it was to watch actual like tangible mistakes happen, and most people just be like, yeah, whatever, he's due for one, maybe, like, cool, all right, on to the next one. Normally in games with like a lot of pressure on them, right, like last week's game against the Bengals, AFC West games, divisional games, every little like mistake is what's the word, magnified, it's emphasized, and it's
for
under
sure.
a microscope. And I mean, and we're all guilty of it. I know me, I'm a big, I don't know where I got it, man, but like I'm a weird stickler for like the little things adding up, because we've just seen it happen over and over and over again. We're just tired of seeing that same story of like one mistake happening and you being able to go, all right, well, now that happened, this is about to happen, this is about to happen, this will, and then the Chargers lose. And then because when you do that, when you predict it and then you watch it unfold in front of you, like you just are Nostradamus or something, that sticks with you. And that's why I think a lot of people are jaded, in the fan base, because we've just seen that movie too many times.
Yeah, we've been programmed to feel that way. There's an innate sense that when something happens in your mind, you go, that's the play that's going to change the game. Or that's the point we're going to talk about later, about how if he would have just made that catch, or if he would have just made that tackle, or if he wouldn't have dropped that interception, they would have won that game. And so every single mistake like that, you in your mind go, that could have cost the game, or probably will cost the Chargers the game. But today, none of that happened. And that was beautiful. Victor wants to talk about Jalen Guyton, who had 2 big games in a row. Is it a Christmas miracle, or is Guyton trending in a new direction?
Yeah, I think I got to go with maybe a little bit of both. I think the Christmas miracle could actually be pointed to Joe Lombardi being more about the deep ball, and I mean, I don't know how much you personally or anyone else take his whole, like, it's not like we're not dialing up the deep ball, it's just not, coming to fruition. While that may be true, it's funny that like after some of the heat and pressure was kind of stoked on him about like, you need to figure out how to throw it deep, that the team is all of a sudden starting to throw it deep, right? I mean, it worked against the Bengals, and the Bengals are a good defense. I think it's a very underrated defense. They're very athletic up front. And in terms of pressure, which was the whole reason that they were like, yeah, we just can't, hold up in pass protection enough for these passes to develop. Well, we just did it against the Bengals, who have a really good front with Trey Hendrickson, Larry Ogunjobi, DJ Reader, all those guys.
Sam
Hubbard. Yep. And so like we saw it happen. And so it's just funny that flip was switched. And so Christmas miracle, I kind of point to the Lombardi stuff, but I do think Guyton is trending in the new direction. And I think that's obviously one today being he just has more opportunities, right? And then recently with them trying to, or at least, cognizant of trying to get the deep ball to work. He's been, the beneficiary of some of those, especially last week, that jump ball in the end zone to over Jesse Bates, the one today. Yeah. I just think it's kind of like things are clicking and all kind of coming together at the right time.
Yeah. Jalen Guyton we saw last year, not so much this year. And I hope so. I sure hope so. Cause I haven't been a big fan of Guyton this season. I mean, he's flashed at times, but yeah, I mean, let's all hope, Victor, and it's not just some kind of Christmas miracle. Got to post this for you here, Mike. Okay. Craig says, wait, hold on. That wasn't what he was saying. Here we go. Craig says,
"What up, Craig?
6'2", 6'3", subtle flex, Michael."
I hate that. Why does that in there? Why does that have to be a flex? Like,
man, celebrate your wins, baby.
It's 6'2", funny.
6'3".
Look, man, us tall kings can't apparently talk about anything in the world. This is actually so funny. Because like literally yesterday, I don't know who I was talking to, but someone asked me how tall I was. I think it was maybe like one of my wife's parents when we were working on the house, and I was like, I'm between 6'2", 6'3". Like I don't just straight up. I try to be a little humble about it, right? Like I'm not a true 6'3". I'm 6'3" with like my cleats on, so I'm a little over 6'2". And it brought up a memory of when I was at like a football camp. I was at Kansas, and they measured me at 6'1" and 1/8. And I like turned around and I was just like, what method are you guys using? And like two of my buddies who were receivers with me from my high school were both measured like an inch or two shorter than they've ever like said that they were tall, And it was just like a travesty. I was like, I had like an existential crisis at 17 years old. I was like, have I been 6'1" this entire time? Who's been lying to me? Like the doctor's been lying to me, and all this stuff. So yeah, like whatever. The point is, I'm tall. So what? I'm kind of tall. I'm not. Listen, I'll tell you right now. I understand most people would probably like give a finger to be, 6'2", 6'3", or whatever. But when you're like my height and you're kind of tall, like the majority of the time, and then someone who walks in who's like 6'6", like an actual tall person walks into the room, I've never felt worse about myself. I've never seriously.
You've never felt so if they're taller, you feel like just a little person.
Man,
huh?
I used to work out. I used to run stairs at the University of Iowa basketball stadium, Carver Hawkeye Arena, and I would sometimes walk by like early in the morning, like one of the basketball players who's like 6'7", 6'8". God forbid it was Luka Garza, who's 7 feet tall, or Adam Woodbury, who used to be there 7'1". Oh my goodness, I would just shrink. I felt so tiny.
Yeah. I had the exact opposite thing happen. Getting measured for sports and stuff. 6 foot. Sometimes they would like, if they wanted to lie and get us on the chart, they give it 6'1". They give me an extra inch. Yeah. And then I got measured at the doctor's office a year ago, and they're like 5'11". I was like, what? I've been 6 foot my whole life. What are you talking about? Because that threshold of a 6 foot man and a 5'11" man is two different animals, man.
I love the joke. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm claiming that 6 foot. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know if you've seen them, but I love the jokes that are, I think they're just on any random meme account, like on Instagram or something, where it's like the difference between a 5'11" man and a 6 foot man. And it's, it's like this much. Or no. Actually, the best one is where it's like a 6 foot dude, but a 5'11" girl. Because it's always the 5'10" guy saying he's 6 foot. And then the girl's always like straight up. She's like, no, I'm an actual 5'11", but she's like this much taller.
Right.
Oh my God, something. I'll tell you what, man, when I was still playing ball and I would see some of the like volleyball players we had a 6'3" girl on Drake's volleyball team, Drake University, where I play football. And like,
not Drake the rapper. Oh, come on.
He visited the school. He visited the school once and took a picture with the school like sign, on one of the corners, Drake University. And he went to my wife's sorority house, just showed up, ding dong. And girl opened the door, Drake. Could you believe it? Lost their damn minds.
Of course they did. Of course. So anyway, you were saying
long story short, long story short, like the feeling I got when I stared a girl in the face who was 6'3" and we just like locked eyes. That's a weird feeling to like look at them, being me, like I'm a tall guy and then a girl walks up and she just like right there is just a little unnerving, but you kind of have to learn to deal with that masculinity. You know what I'm saying?
And this is Craig's with me, man. He's 6 foot and they try to rob him of half an inch at every camp.
I don't know why they always trying to rob us, man. Like, let us thrive.
Let these tall kings thrive.
Everyone knows on the actual football roster, I don't care where you go to school, you always put not how tall you are, you put how tall you are with cleats on, because when you're on the field, you're that tall. So dumb.
Yeah. It's the same with basketball and stuff. When I played basketball in high school too, it's the same thing. You're what you are with your shoes on. So Morgan's watching the bar. Thanks for watching us here. And of course, thanks, Michael, for pitching in here and coming with us. Really appreciate it. And Victor wants to talk about Thursday night. I knew this was coming. What are your thoughts after this game heading into Thursday night's game? I hate Thursday night games, and it's a divisional game to make it worse. Thursday night games are terrible.
They are.
And this is probably the first good one all year, at least on paper. But
yeah, this is Thursday games are tough, but one silver lining is that, and I don't have the concrete numbers in front of me to back this up, but on Thursday night games, usually it's the home team that plays way better than the away team. For whatever reason, road teams on Thursday night football look horrendous. I mean, just go back. I'm pretty sure you could probably look this up yourself and just see how road teams offensively did across the Thursday night football schedule. But that's one thing that I think could be in the Chargers' favor. In this one. I mean, the Chiefs, they need it though, right? The Chiefs are playing about as well as anybody in the league. They look like their normal selves. It's kind of nuts to think about how bad they look to begin the season.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
the Raiders.
Right. And the thing is, they're doing this, one, with a defense that looks way better than it did before. And two, they're finding ways to do it with other players that aren't Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill and Kelce both have actually quite a few drops on the season, really up there with Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler. And we think we've had problems with the drops, except kind of recently we kind of, squashed that problem. But in general, they're actually kind of up there in terms of drops, leading the league. I think our top three, both of them might be. Anyway, they're able to do it with Tyreek Hill. I think today didn't have that big of a game. And then I want to say either last week or the week before. No, it was last week. And I only remember this because he scored 3.2 points in fantasy and I was playing against him. Not a big day, right? I mean, obviously not a big day if he scores only 3.5 points. So they're finding ways to win without their star players having those big games. And that's when I think teams, actual good teams, are taking it to another level. Because good teams, you don't want to just win and die by your best players having good games, right? Really good, great teams, upper echelon teams are able to get it done no matter who's on the field. And I feel like the Chargers are actually one of those teams with the way they're able to distribute the ball between all their tight ends, all their receivers. Herbert really showed that as a rookie as well, that it doesn't matter who's on the field. He's able to kind of get them the ball and find them enough. So it is a scary game. You're right. Winner of this game is in sole possession of the AFC West.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a big freaking deal. I mean, the Chargers were in the lead earlier this season when the Chiefs were bad, but all of a sudden it's oh no, this feels normal, right? Chiefs are in the lead. There's a big game late in the season between Chargers and Chiefs. Winner, it takes all the marbles type of feeling. It's going to be huge. I'm super nervous for it because I feel like it could just go either way. But I'll tell you what, with Derwin James getting the week off, Keenan Allen hopefully back, I think this will be the game where Asante Samuel Jr. is back. Probably get a Lohi Gilman back. I think they've been prepping and being cautious with injuries and everyone who's not feeling too well. I feel like this is the week that everyone's going to come back and this team's going to look pretty close to what they did when they first played the Chiefs earlier this season.
Yeah, and just how important this game is here on Thursday. They are set up to play the Chiefs in the playoffs in Kansas City. I don't picture a world where the Chargers beat the Chiefs twice in Arrowhead. I just don't think that's possible. I think if they win this game, take sole possession, they control their own destiny after that because they got the tiebreakers over the Chiefs. They'll have the same record, and then they can win out, and then they could have home field advantage. They cannot, to me, one of the scariest matchups right now for the Chargers is playing Kansas City in Kansas City. And that'd be terrible to have a season like they're having, have to go into Arrowhead and beat them twice because that's nearly impossible with a guy like Andy Reid as head coach and then Patrick Mahomes kind of clicking right now at the end of the season.
Yeah, I have to agree. And you may not know this on top of your head, but so that's a situation where the season ended today, that it would be Chiefs Chargers, right?
Yep.
So there's a chance that the Chargers potentially in the first round don't face the Chiefs, but then you look at the other teams who they may be facing. And it's one, the Patriots, which are a way better team than when the Chargers face them. There's potentially the Ravens, I think, unless the loss today to the Browns kind of mixes that whole thing up. I don't know who's winning the AFC North this year, man. That thing's a mess. And then you got the Colts kind of on the outside looking in. You've got the Bills, which I actually think just tied it up with the Bucks and are going into overtime right now. So who knows where the Bills are going to land in the playoffs. And then, there's the Bengals potentially if they find a way to recoup from the last 2 losses and, win the AFC North. Who knows? All I know is that if the Chargers don't win the division, I think their opening round matchup probably is a very scary time with either like the Patriots or the Chiefs or a team that they just do not want to see.
So just to give you an update, the Bengals just lost in overtime to the 49ers.
Did they?
Yep. So
that might push the Bengals. Yeah, that might push the Bengals out of the top 7 because they had flip-flopped with the Chargers, the 7 and 5 seeds. But if the Bills lose here to the Bucks, I think Bills.
They already did. I think they did.
The Bills lost.
They lost in overtime too. Yeah.
Oh,
Bills came all the way back and forced it into overtime, and they lost.
I thought it just started. Wow. Okay.
No, they played the same time the Chargers did, but they were getting their asses handed to them early in that game. But they came back.
Wow, Niners
lost in overtime. So, Robert's chiming in on your punter talk. Long seems like a 4-stepper.
God,
all right, so it's too long of a process. Victor's got the real question here.
Oh,
the Mary kills, which are kill, Mary, date in his mind. You got to pick a quarterback: Phillip, Breeze, and Herbert. This is a tough one. I don't think you could do anything but marry Rivers, right? Because that's just too wholesome. Anything else is work.
But doesn't Herbert seem like the modern man that every girl wants to marry?
Doesn't really have a social media presence, quiet, humble. Yeah, of course.
To be honest,
that's the one you want to marry.
Oh my God, this is tough because I'm actually giving this too much thought. Probably, Herbert seems like someone you actually would want to marry. I'm talking like 4.0 GPA, biology major, was a student assistant, a TA, whatever it is. He's also just like perfect in every way, long, luscious hair. You know how it is. I don't know. I don't know.
Keep going.
I don't know how you don't marry. Don't get me started about those blue goals, baby. I don't know. Because, who do you kill in this situation? Because that's the one I'm struggling with. Do you? Because I think Breeze is just fun as a dude.
Breeze is amazing person. I love him to death. He didn't really become breezy until New Orleans. So his whole stint with the Chargers and San Diego, if we're just taking Charger-esque Mary kills here, I'm killing Breeze. I'm marrying Herbert, and all Phillip does is F. So I'm gonna F.
You just date him on the side and keep it casual. Yeah. I just think because if you think about it, Herbert seems to be the right marry, and you date Phillip because you're probably going out on quite a few wild dates and having a pretty good time. And although he seems.
I think there's a lot of Bible study. There's a lot of Sunday socials.
Yeah, but what do you think he's doing after the Bible study? He's probably trying to have a decent time.
You think he's throwing down?
Filthy. I'm not saying he's super filthy. I'm just saying I bet he's always just we should go do this. We should go do a go-kart racing. Or we should go down to the fair and play some games and stuff. I just feel like he's the dude who's always just let's go do this.
Fun, wholesome stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm with you. I'm with you. I could do that all day though. That was a great question. Let's see here. Chris Bernhardt had a story. Jeremy Clary came into my house after he got drafted, and I couldn't believe people were made that big. I've ran into athletes and stuff. I remember being in the locker room for the Chargers game and just seeing Jamal Williams. And I remember going, we're not even the same species. If he's a human being, then I don't know what the hell I am. Because that's a whole different thing over there. The muscle, the height, the everything. I'm not the same thing as him. I couldn't even believe it.
I think what I would consider my moment where I had a similar feeling, right? I'm not of the same caliber, the same species, all this stuff. So I had one trip to the University of Kansas when they played Oklahoma. And this was 2011, something like that. Landry Jones was their quarterback. Blake Bell was on the team. I think Mike Dana or Hannah or something like that was another tight end. Ryan Broyles was on the team. But anyway, I was looking at like their tight ends, and I'm playing tight at the time, but I'm like a 6'2", 225-pound-ish, like, fullback tight end, what have you in high school. And I'm looking at these tight ends that are like 6'5", 6'6", 250 to 260 pounds, running around catching passes from Landry Jones. And I'm like, could I play here? Could I like do anything? Could I survive at a place like this? It was just insane. And just a fun fact, this is where I got really salty about like actual tall people. What made me so mad is when I'd be on these like football visits and I'd see like an offensive lineman recruit who's like 6'5", 6'6", and both of his parents are 5'10" or below. Both of them.
Yeah. Don't you hate that?
So I'm looking at this dude.
Mad.
Oh my God. I'm seeing a dude. He's 6'6". He's got everything you want, built super well. And then he's got like two frumpy 5'7" parents. Like no genetics that you go, oh, like, yeah, he's his father's son, or he got his height from his mother or his father or whatever.
Right.
I'm talking like this dude should have been every other kid who realizes at 12 years old that he's not going anywhere physically,
Right. Yeah.
And he ended up being, taller than everybody in the world with all the athletic ability. It didn't make sense because I'm just like my dad. I had the same growth spurt. I ended up being like 6'2.5". All my brothers are the same height as well. We all had the same spiel, the same sequence, right? And then I just see other people just like win that genetic lottery. And I'm like, which devil did you sell your soul to? Or like, what'd your parents do? Who they sacrificed to get your kid?
Yeah.
Oh my God. It was just enraging.
It makes no sense. I play, and we're just going down memory lane here. I played Little League and stuff. Not in the same league, but we would play them in the playoffs and stuff with Prince Fielder, Cecil Fielder's son, who was growing up in San Diego. And you saw him and you're like, oh, that's so Cecil Fielder's son. You could totally he's huge, he's tall. That is the same body type as Cecil Fielder. Then you see these like small ass parents with giant kids and you're like, you're adopted, bro. Like there's no way you got that tall. And it makes no sense. And Ben thinks this is heightism and we should stop talking about it.
One more story.
Okay.
One more story. So my senior year of high school, we I don't know what, we never did this, or I never heard of any other classes before me doing it, but like we started going to like lineman competitions in high school, which I don't know if you guys have ever heard of these, but like, how there's like 7-on-7 camps where, well, in Iowa, we also had like lineman competitions where you go and it's basically just like a hail bay toss. There's like certain agility drills, sled pushing, like farmer's carry, which is you carry like super heavy weights, one in each arm, and you have to walk a certain distance. It's like a relay. You do all kinds of stuff like that. And I remember showing up and we had a really big offensive line in high school. We averaged 6'4", 275. And that included me at 6'2", 6'3", about like 225 at the time. But we went to this lineman camp. It was in like Fort Madison, Iowa, in the middle of nowhere. This team rolls up from some Riverside, Illinois, like right across the border. And they roll up and like I see all these kids that I like, understandably are in high school. And I see one massive guy. And I'm like, damn, their coach is huge. Come to find out, this dude comes over. He rips off whatever shirt he has. He's wearing a black wife beater. And he starts preparing for the competition. And I'm like, who the hell is this dude? Come to find out, his name is Mitchell Keppy. He was the son of former University of Iowa offensive lineman like Bruce Keppy or something along those lines. The guy was already on YouTube because he had the fastest pin in heavyweight wrestling in state history. And turns out he ends up winning the lineman competition.
Of course.
And going to play at Iowa. But what ends up happening, he never plays for Iowa. He's hurt, and then he's never actually good enough to play a snap for the University of Iowa when he was there. But just like, it is too bad. Like I heard he was a pretty decent guy, but I never actually met him myself. But like, that was just like one of those moments where I was just like, there's no way he's in high school. But then you start seeing, and I don't know if you've seen this, but like I want to say a couple months ago, some kid was viral on SportsCenter, like their Instagram or social medias, because he was a 6'5", 260-pound freshman in high school. And I mean, jacked out of his mind, hulking, all this stuff, like the whole I am 12 written in crayon on a piece of paper type thing. And it's just like, what luck for those kids.
Yeah, I know. And there's nothing worse than a person who has all the genetics, but is like not coordinated enough to do anything. That's the funniest. Derek says, we talking Chargers or genetics? All right, fine. Let's get back into it. Craig says he'll be there Thursday. All right, Craig. Big shout out. That's good, man. Enjoy it. There is a couple questions here about the matchup Sunday, of course. Should Kelsey and Hill get doubled again? There's a lot of bracket coverages last time around. Do you see them doing that again? Let's say everything equal. Derwin's healthy. They've got everybody. Asante Samuel's back. They doing the same thing again?
I don't see why they wouldn't. Obviously, I mean, you're not going to fix what's not broken. It worked in the first game. I think I honestly, the first time I heard the way Bill Belichick does it with New England, and where they double their best receiver, or what was it? Do you remember what I'm saying? They double like their second receiver, and then they do something to the wide receiver one. They do something where like it was so perfect. I'm so upset now that I can't think about it. But they double one of their receivers, and then they bracket somebody else to do something weird. And
that's exactly it.
Yeah, so it's where they try to force their best player to make plays through a bad situation, and then so they force it to their second receiver, and then they force their second receiver to be like their number one receiver during the game, but obviously they're not. So they just try to force the bad matchups and force players who don't normally do the heavy lifting to have to do the heavy lifting to make them win that game, or at least raise their chances to the point where they could win that game. So I love stuff like that, and I think that's probably a good way for them to handle this game. Getting Asante Samuel Jr. back is going to be great. Davis kind of having this type of game, I think, before the Chiefs is going to give him a level of confidence, because he is the fastest cornerback, I believe, on this team. Not having Tavon Campbell out on the field for more than like a handful of snaps is going to be huge as well. I think he had a pretty good game. He didn't make any mistakes, right? So, of course, you're going to say he had a good game, which is all we need to expect from him. But yeah, and then Derwin coming back and being able to get on Kelsey and stuff like that. Yeah, I would say for sure, whatever they did in the first game, of course, you're going to hope they do the exact same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to. There is a update here. Nathan says if the season ended today, it's Chargers going to Baltimore.
Ooh.
Baltimore lost today. Cincy lost today.
That's not the worst thing in the world. I know what happened in the first game was like the worst thing we've ever seen this season, right? The way they were able to handle the Chargers. But yeah, Lamar
went down with an injury today too, so we don't know how serious that is. Yeah,
and they just don't seem like the same Ravens team. They've got some lucky breaks. I think when I did that math about like all the top playoff AFC quarterbacks in terms of like the record for when they throw an interception in a game, and Lamar was like 5-1, and that includes a game where he throws 4 interceptions. Like, that's how good the team's been around him, and I think that just screams regression. And so I think like right now the Ravens, who I think they've lost 2 in a row, maybe it's been 3 in a row if I remember correctly, but this team is on a downturn, and I think that may carry on honestly through the rest of the season.
Yeah, big day for the Chargers getting the win today, because Baltimore loses, Cincy loses, Buffalo loses. That's huge. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see. If you had to pick a January road opponent between Pats, KC, Baltimore with Jackson, and Titans with Henry, who would you pick? I think I'm going with Baltimore, like you're mentioning here.
I think so as well. That the running, so one, the run defense is better. Like, we've seen it. We know it's better. And Baltimore's running, like their stable of running backs, is not like the same thing that it was in that game either, right? Like Freeman, I know Bell's not on the team anymore, but like Latavius Murray, they're not doing anything, like they're not running super efficiently. Like, they didn't have to rush for a lot of yards to beat the Chargers, but like when they did, they rushed for like, they got the first downs they needed, converted on third, converted in the red zone, like they were playing kind of above themselves, I thought, in that game. And so with the Ravens kind of on a bit of a downturn, that stable of running backs not looking the same way, I think that matchup seems to be the best right now.
Yeah. Tennessee with a healthy Derrick Henry scares the living shit out of me with this run defense. I just don't. I don't think that's a good matchup for them at all. I'm definitely going with Baltimore, but Tennessee, if he's 100% Derrick Henry, that's not a great fit for the Chargers. Does it scare you if Henry is back? Does he scare you too? This is from Hugh Jass, by the way, my
no.
favorite name on here.
I've known a few Hugh Jazzes in my time. I'll tell you what. Yeah, it scares it scares my jazz off. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, oh my God, I couldn't imagine. Could you just imagine, like, who is it? Jerry Tillery riding on the back of Derrick Henry.
I don't want to see it. I don't. Nope. Giants fan here saying Chargers, good game to the Chargers for beating the Giants. This Giants team is all types of trash. Hope the Chargers go all the way and not the Chiefs. We agree with you. So if Asante Samuel's back, is Michael Davis still wide receiver 1 and Asante CB2? I say yes. How about you?
Well, Asante Samuel has missed a handful of games this year and still leads the team in pass breakups. We'll see what it looks like after this game, but I think Asante actually is cornerback 1, and I think his play has shown that. It's been consistent, a lot more consistent on a week-to-week basis than Davis. But we'll see. I mean, Davis has a really good opportunity to capitalize on the momentum that he built in this game. Next week, if he has another good game, I'd rightfully say, yes, Davis is this, the highest paid corner on the team. I believe so. I believe he's paid more than Chris Harris. Quote me or tell me I'm wrong if I am. But like, he's paid like he should be the top corner, and I think he's a good opportunity to be that with another good game.
Yeah. All right, let's go rapid fire here because we just eclipsed an hour.
Cool.
Which is the tougher road trip in the playoffs, at the Patriots or at Kansas City?
Damn, that's hard. City.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'd say Kansas City too. You kind of hope that, a rookie in Mac would make mistakes in his first playoff game. Mm-hmm. You doubt that happens with Belichick, but I do not think the Chargers can beat KC twice in the same season. Let's see. Denario Alexander versus Brandon Oliver. Who was the better Chargers one-year wonder?
Brandon Oliver.
Oh man, I'm going Denario. Okay. Let's see. We're going to keep going down. Oh, Derek says this is what the Pats did. They did your best corner on wide receiver 2, and then they would double your wide receiver 1.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much for clarifying that. I knew it was just on the tip of my tongue. It made so much sense, and I loved it when I first heard it. And that does make a lot of sense. Best corner, wide receiver 2, double 1. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Let's see here. Well, let's go last. Is quarterback contain still a problem for the defense? So far, it doesn't seem to be an issue. You see you remember any time where they've been able to run loose like Lamar did?
I mean, what quarterbacks have they played since then? I mean, they played Jalen, which Jalen did get out, but there was video evidence of quite a few egregious holds on the edge. Which and I usually want to be pretty realistic about this. Like if it was, ticky tack, I'm going to call it. If it was bad, I'm going to call it bad. And if it was not a hold, I'd probably say that it wasn't a hold. There was some pretty blatant stuff where Jalen Hurts was able to escape and no one was near him, pressuring him. And that's because they were holding on to Joey Bosa as if their life depended on it.
He had 62 yards rushing that game.
Yeah, but he made a few really good plays to extend some drives on some third downs because of stuff that. So definitely it felt worse than maybe it was.
Okay.
I'd say no. Right. I'd say no, it's not a problem.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think they're all right at the time being. So, Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, he is at Zone Tracks, as you see there on the screen. I appreciate you filling in for Jamie, who couldn't be here today. Any last words before we get out of here?
No, I don't think so. Just go ahead and follow me on Twitter. I just appreciate everybody for supporting the site, for supporting the lightning round, and these guys who do just an absolute amazing job at not only creating this fantastic podcast with a lot of character and soul and analytics and anything that you possibly want to know about this team. I just think it's a fantastic product, and I'm just glad that I get to work with them.
Wow, how sweet is that? What a great way. I appreciate that, Michael. Thank you. All right, guys. Well, everybody, Sam says, Michael, start a podcast with Michael Stanley, the Kick and Punt podcast. That is so good.
It's not the worst idea in the world. I will tell you right now. So I had a podcast last year. It was called, it was Chargers Lately or whatever. I've moved countless times, it seems like, over the last 2 years. And right now, like going into the season, I don't have an office. I have a corner of a living room that my desk is in right now. We're about to move into a new home. Hopefully I'm able to build that into an actual office that I want to work in with like an actual audio setup. Excuse me. I have the stuff. It's just been a hectic time in my life with moving and buying a house and all this stuff. So look forward to, I want to get back into doing audio shows and stuff like that. So just be on the lookout for that.
Yes. Thank you. That'd be, man, that is a great idea, Sam. He says, thanks, Michael. But Stanley being into kickers and you being a punter, that is such a good idea, Sam.
But would we only be able to talk about kicking and punting?
Yeah.
Would that be
no,
every week? All right. Well, here we're going to break down Ty Long's steps. Let's see how we did this year.
Yeah. 1, 2, 4. Yeah. John saying the best Chargers podcast by a mile. Thank you so much, John. Thank you, everybody else, for tuning in. Michael, again, thanks so much for filling in, man. We'll see him on Twitter. I think he's going to have a pretty big announcement about some life events happening, which he was alluding to a little bit. But make sure you follow him at Zone Tracks. Look for his podcast coming soon, hopefully. And make sure you're reading everything he writes over at Bolts from the Blue. So thanks, everybody, and we will see you next time.